My wife got a disrespectful tattoo for her AP, so I divorced her. So here's how this whole thing started. I'm gonna be real with you guys. I didn't think my marriage was gonna end because of a tattoo of all things. But here we are. Me and Molly, we've been together for 5 years, married for 3. I thought things were good, you know? We had the usual arguments like any couple, nothing crazy. But looking back now, I can see how stuff started to unravel. It all kicked off when we were engaged. Molly's always been into tattoos, which is fine. I don't have anything against them or people who get them. I just didn't want one myself, like it's not my thing. Anyway, at our engagement party, she came up to me all excited and was like, "Babe, wouldn't it be awesome if we got matching tattoos to celebrate?" And I kind of laughed it off at first, thinking she wasn't serious. But nope, she was dead serious. I told her, "Look, I don't mind if you get a tattoo. I'm just not interested in getting one myself." She seemed a little bummed, but didn't make a big deal out of it right then. I thought that was the end of it. Like, yeah, she might bring it up here and there, but we're adults, right? She can do her thing and I'll do mine. Then we get married. A few months after the wedding, she brings it up again, asking me about matching tattoos. At this point, I've already said no, so I kind of remind her of that, thinking she'd just drop it. But nope. Every couple of months, like clockwork, she'd mention it. Each time, it was more intense. Like she was getting more and more upset that I wasn't on board with this whole tattoo thing. I gotta be honest, it was getting super annoying. I told her the same thing every time. You can get a tattoo if you want, but I don't want one. Simple, right? Apparently not. She started acting like this was a relationship deal breaker or something, which made no sense to me. Anyway, fast forward a bit. Molly gets promoted at her job. Now, I was really proud of her for that. She worked hard and deserved it. She got transferred to a new office, a new team, and started talking about this one coworker of hers, Josh. According to her, Josh was this super cool guy with all these tattoos, and apparently, he was giving her advice about what kind of ink to get. And listen, I didn't care that she was talking to a dude at work. I'm not that insecure or whatever. But the way she was bringing him up all the time, yeah, that started to bug me. Like, she'd never stop talking about Josh and his tattoos. I didn't say anything at first, because I didn't want to be that guy, you know? The one who gets all paranoid just because his wife is talking to another dude. But deep down, I was like, something's off. Then one night, Molly hits me with this comment that totally caught me off guard. We were just chilling, and she looks at me and says, "Josh thinks you're not a real man because you're scared to get a tattoo." I'm sitting there like, what? Where the hell did that come from? I've told her 100 times I'm not scared of getting a tattoo, I just don't want one. There's a difference, right? So I asked her, "Why would you throw that at my face? It sounds like Josh is trying to get in your pants, to be honest." And get this, she just goes, "If the shoe fits." I was stunned. What does that even mean? Like, did she agree with him? Was she actually thinking I'm not a real man because I won't get some random tattoo? It just didn't make sense to me. We'd never had issues like this before, so I couldn't figure out why she was suddenly being so cruel about it. She stormed off to the bedroom and slammed the door, and I just sat there thinking, is this really happening? It felt like things were starting to go downhill fast, but I wasn't sure if it was just about the tattoo or if there was something more going on. The next couple of days were awkward as hell. Molly didn't talk to me at all. We were barely even in the same room together, and when we were, there was this weird tension. It was like she was mad at me, but for what? Because I didn't want a tattoo? That just didn't make sense. Then, a few days later, she told me she was going shopping after work. No big deal. She did that all the time. But when she came home, she had this look on her face like she was waiting for me to ask her what was up. So I asked her how shopping was, and she just smiled and rolled up her sleeve to show me this brand new tattoo on her forearm. Now, let me tell you, I wasn't expecting that. It was 2 Chinese symbols. She told me they meant strength and independence. And listen, I don't speak Chinese, but even I knew something was off about it. Molly is white, she doesn't speak a word of Chinese, so I'm already thinking this whole thing is kind of weird. But what really got me was the initials underneath the symbols, JWT. I looked at her and said, "What do the initials stand for?" And that's when she paused. You know that feeling when you just know someone's about to say something that's gonna piss you off? Yeah, that was me. She took a deep breath and said, "They're Josh's initials." I didn't even know how to respond at first. I was just sitting there like, "You got another guy's initials tattooed on your arm? Seriously?" Her explanation made it worse, if that's even possible. She said Josh had taken her to his tattoo artist, and he stayed with her the whole time, supporting her while she got the tattoo. So she wanted to honor their friendship by adding his initials. Like, what the actual hell? I told her flat out that it was disrespectful to have another dude's initials tattooed on her body, and she needed to get it removed. But she just flipped it around on me, like I was the bad guy. She said I was trying to control her and that I was the one who said she could get a tattoo if she wanted. She even threw it back in my face that I refused to get matching tattoos with her, so she shared the experience with Josh instead. That was the moment I knew we were in real trouble. I couldn't believe she was acting like I was in the wrong for being upset. I mean, how could she not see that what she did was completely disrespectful? We barely spoke for the next few days. When we did, it was always about the tattoo, and every time, she'd tell me to just get over it, like it was no big deal. But it was a big deal to me, a huge deal. After that whole tattoo thing, I started seeing Molly in a completely different light. You know when you've been with someone for so long, and then one day you just realize they're not the person you thought they were? Yeah, that's where I was at. The tattoo was bad enough, but it wasn't even just about the ink on her skin. It was the attitude, the way she acted like I was crazy for being upset. It's like I was living with a stranger. So one night, I'm sitting in the living room watching TV and Molly's on the phone. She's in the next room, but I can hear her laughing and chatting away. Normally I wouldn't care, it's just a phone call, right? But then I hear her say Josh's name. My ears immediately perked up. At this point, I've got all these doubts swirling around in my head, and hearing her talk to him just rubbed me the wrong way. I couldn't make out everything she was saying, but it was enough to know they were way too comfortable with each other. The way she was laughing at whatever he was saying, it wasn't a coworker laugh, if you get what I'm saying. I started getting that sinking feeling in my gut. You know when something's not right, but you can't put your finger on it yet? Yeah, that. When she finally gets off the phone, I just flat out ask, "Why are you talking to Josh so much?" She gave me this look, like I was being the unreasonable one, and goes, "He's my friend, Jake. What's the big deal?" I couldn't help it. I snapped back, "The big deal is that you're acting like he's more than a friend. You got his initials tattooed on your arm for crying out loud." That was probably the wrong thing to say, because she immediately went on the defensive. "You don't understand our friendship," she said. "Just because you're insecure doesn't mean I'm doing anything wrong." Insecure? That's what she was going to hit me with? I wasn't insecure. I was confused. I was trying to make sense of why my wife seemed more connected to some random dude at work than she was to me. But you can't argue with someone who's already made their mind up that you're the bad guy, so I just let it go. For the moment, at least. The next couple of weeks were a blur. Molly and I were barely talking. It felt like we were just coexisting, living in the same space but not really living together, if that makes sense. I'd go to work, come home, and we'd barely say 2 words to each other. She was on her phone more and more, and I'm guessing she was texting Josh half the time. Every time I'd ask what she was doing, she'd get defensive, so I just stopped asking. One night, though, things took a turn. Molly came home late from work. She'd been doing that more often, always with some excuse about staying late or going out for drinks with coworkers. Normally, I wouldn't be suspicious of something like that, but given everything that had been going on, I couldn't help but feel like something was off. She walked in the door, and I could smell perfume on her. It wasn't hers. I knew what her perfume smelled like, and this wasn't it. So I asked her, "Where have you been?" She rolled her eyes at me like I was being paranoid and said, "I told you I went out with some coworkers. You don't have to wait up for me every time." "Yeah, but you smell like someone else's perfume," I shot back. That got her attention. She looked caught off guard for a second, then quickly recovered. "Oh, that's probably just from one of the girls hugging me goodbye or something." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something in my gut told me she wasn't telling the whole truth. I didn't want to start a huge fight, though, so I let it go for the night. But the doubt? That didn't go anywhere. A few days later, things got even weirder. Molly was getting ready for work one morning, and I noticed she was spending way more time on her appearance than usual. Now, I'm not saying it's weird for someone to want to look good, but this was different. She was putting on makeup, doing her hair, picking out a nice outfit, stuff she normally didn't do for work. It was like she was going on a date or something. So I asked her, "Why are you getting all dressed up for work?" She laughed it off and said, "Can't a girl want to look good for herself?" Sure, that's fair, but something still felt wrong. I didn't push it, though. I didn't want to come off as controlling or whatever, but in the back of my mind, I was already connecting the dots. Her coming home late, the phone calls with Josh, the perfume. It was all adding up to something I didn't want to admit yet. Then came the moment that confirmed everything. One evening, she told me she was going to a work event and wouldn't be home until late. I didn't think much of it at first, but later that night, I had this nagging feeling. You know when your gut just knows something's wrong? Yeah, that. So I decided to go for a drive and clear my head. As I'm driving around, I passed by this bar we used to go to sometimes, and guess what? There's Molly's car parked out front. I wasn't even looking for it, but there it was. My heart started racing. I pulled over, not really sure what I was going to do, but I couldn't just leave it alone. So I walked in, and there she was, sitting in a booth in the corner, laughing, with Josh sitting next to her. They weren't just sitting across from each other, they were sitting next to each other, real close. She didn't see me at first, but when she did, her face went pale, like she'd been caught. I didn't cause a scene or anything. I just walked up, looked her dead in the eye, and said, "Is this the work event?" Molly didn't even try to come up with an excuse. She just sat there, frozen, while Josh looked like he wanted to disappear. I didn't even give her a chance to respond. I just turned around and walked out. That was the moment I knew it was over. I wasn't going to sit around and pretend like nothing was happening anymore. She could have her tattoo and her friendship with Josh. I was done. When she got home later that night, I was already packing my stuff. I didn't wait for her to explain. I didn't need her to. We both knew what was going on, and I wasn't going to stick around and be made a fool of anymore. Update 1. After I walked out of that bar and saw Molly sitting there with Josh, I was done. No more games, no more excuses. I went home and packed up my stuff. I didn't care if it was late or if I had to sleep somewhere else that night. I wasn't staying in the same house with her anymore. I didn't even want to look at her, let alone be in the same room. When Molly finally got home, it was like she already knew what was happening. She walked in and saw my bags by the door, and her face just dropped. She didn't even try to act surprised. She stood there for a second like she was trying to come up with the right words, but nothing came out. Eventually, she just asked, "So you're leaving?" I looked her right in the eyes and said, "Yeah, I'm leaving. What did you expect?" She didn't say anything at first, just stood there, looking at me like she was waiting for me to cool down and change my mind. But I wasn't changing my mind. I was done being treated like a joke. Finally, she said, "It's not what you think." That's when I lost it. "Oh, really? So you're not sitting in a bar with some guy who you've been obsessing over, who you've got tattooed on your arm, while you've been lying to me for weeks, because that's what it looks like to me." She looked like she wanted to defend herself, but she didn't have a leg to stand on. I wasn't stupid. I knew what was going on, even if she hadn't admitted it out loud yet. She tried one more time. "We were just talking." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "Just talking? That's what you're gonna go with?" At that point, I didn't care what her excuse was. I'd heard enough. I grabbed my bags and started heading for the door, but before I could leave, she grabbed my arm. I turned around and there were tears in her eyes. For a split second, I felt like I should stop, like maybe there was still something left to salvage. But then I remembered everything, all of it. The tattoo, the late nights, the phone calls, and most of all, the fact that she lied. I pulled my arm free and said, "This isn't on me, Molly. You did this. You made your choices." She didn't try to stop me after that. I walked out the door, and that was that. I didn't look back. I ended up staying at a buddy's place for a few days while I figured out what to do next. It wasn't exactly ideal, but it gave me space to clear my head. My friend Ryan was pretty shocked when I told him what happened. He'd met Molly a few times and she'd always seemed so nice and normal, you know? But I guess you never really know someone until something like this happens. The next few days were a blur of phone calls, text messages, and just trying to get my life together. Molly tried to reach out a few times. She sent me texts saying things like, "I'm sorry," and "Can we talk?" But I wasn't interested in hearing her apologies. What was there to talk about? She had another guy's initials tattooed on her, for God's sake. That's not something you can just explain away. I wasn't stupid. I knew that this wasn't just some innocent friendship like she tried to claim. I had that gut feeling from the start, but I didn't want to believe it at first. It was all too clear now, and honestly, I wasn't interested in hearing her excuses or whatever twisted version of the story she was going to try to sell me. A few days after I left, she showed up at Ryan's place. I guess she figured out where I was staying. I wasn't exactly hiding, but I didn't expect her to come find me either. Ryan wasn't home when she knocked on the door, so it was just me. I didn't want to let her in, but she was standing there in the rain, looking like a mess, so I let her inside. I wasn't about to have some dramatic scene out in the street. She came in dripping wet and sat down on the couch. Neither of us said anything for a while. I could tell she'd been crying, but I wasn't going to fall for that. I just sat there waiting for her to speak. Eventually, she broke the silence. "I messed up, Jake. I know I did." I didn't say anything. What was there to say? She already knew how I felt. She kept talking, though. "I never meant for it to get this far. I never meant to hurt you." I looked at her and just said, "But you did. You hurt me. And you didn't just hurt me once. You kept doing it. You lied to me over and over." She nodded, wiping at her eyes. "I know. I'm sorry. I don't even know why I did it. I was stupid. Now, maybe a few years ago, I would have taken her words to heart. Maybe I would have forgiven her and tried to work things out. But after everything, I just couldn't. I wasn't the same guy who could just let this slide. I asked her, "Did you sleep with him?" There it was, the big question. The one I already knew the answer to, but I needed to hear her say it. She hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Yeah, I did." Hearing her admit it didn't make me feel any better. If anything, it just made it all feel more real. There was no going back now. This was it. I stood up and walked over to the window, staring out at the rain. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to yell, to scream at her for betraying me, but I was too tired for that. I just felt drained. "You should go," I finally said, without even turning around to look at her. She didn't argue. She didn't fight. She just stood up, grabbed her purse, and left. And just like that, it was over. The divorce process after that was surprisingly quick. We didn't have kids or anything tying us together, so there wasn't much to fight about. I kept the house, she moved in with a friend, and we both signed the papers. Done deal. We only spoke a few more times during the whole thing, and every time we did it was civil, polite even. But it felt cold, like we were two strangers, not two people who had been married for years. When the divorce was finally finalized, I felt relieved. Not happy, not sad, just relieved. It was like a weight had been lifted off my chest. I didn't have to pretend anymore. I didn't have to keep wondering if she was lying to me, if there was something going on behind my back. It was done. I'd never imagined my marriage ending like this, but life has a way of surprising you, I guess. And honestly, I'm okay with that. I'm ready to move on. Update 2. After the divorce was finalized, I thought that'd be the end of it. Like, I thought we'd both move on, go our separate ways, and that'd be it. But as usual, life doesn't really go the way you expect. And Molly? She wasn't quite done messing with me. A couple of weeks after everything was settled, I started getting these random texts from her. At first, they were just those polite, meaningless kind of messages, you know? Like, "Hope you're doing okay," or "Just checking in." I ignored most of them because, honestly, what was there left to say? We weren't together anymore, and I didn't need her checking in on me like we were still friends or something. Then, one night, she sent me this long message out of nowhere. It was like a wall of text. She started talking about how she was struggling with the divorce and how things weren't going the way she thought they would. She mentioned that she was having problems with Josh, of course, and that her life was kind of falling apart. Now, I'll admit, part of me felt a little bit of satisfaction reading that. It was like, well, what did you expect? But another part of me, a smaller part, I guess, felt bad. I mean, I didn't want her life to fall apart. I just wanted her to take responsibility for what she'd done, but it was like she was still playing the victim. She ended the message by asking if we could meet up to talk. She said she needed closure, that she wanted to apologize face to face. I wasn't sure what to do. On one hand, I didn't really want to see her again. On the other, I guess I could understand needing some closure. Plus, I figured it'd be the last time I'd ever have to deal with her. So I agreed. We met up at this little coffee shop not far from where we used to live. I got there first, sat down, and waited. The whole time I was sitting there, I was going over everything in my head. Like, I was mentally preparing for whatever excuses or apologies she was going to throw at me. When she finally walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked different. I'm not saying she looked bad or anything, but there was something off. She looked tired, worn out, like life had really hit her hard these past few weeks. It wasn't the Molly I remembered, that's for sure. She sat down across from me, and we kind of just sat there awkwardly for a few minutes. Neither of us really knew how to start. Eventually, she spoke up. "Jake, I'm sorry," she said, her voice shaky. "I've been thinking about everything that happened, and I realize now how much I hurt you." I nodded, not really sure what to say. I wasn't there for an apology. I was there to hear her out and close this chapter for good. But she kept talking. "I shouldn't have done what I did," she continued. "With Josh, I didn't mean for it to happen the way it did. I wasn't thinking clearly." I raised an eyebrow. "You weren't thinking clearly? Molly, you had another guy's initials tattooed on your body. You lied to me for months. How is that not thinking clearly?" She looked down at the table, fiddling with her hands. I know it sounds bad, but I wasn't happy. I felt like we were drifting apart and I didn't know how to deal with it." I couldn't help but scoff at that. "So instead of talking to me about it, you decided to go to him? You thought cheating was the solution?" She didn't say anything. She just sat there looking guilty, but I wasn't in the mood to let her off the hook that easily. I'd spent too long trying to figure out why she'd done what she did, and now she was finally admitting it. But it didn't feel like enough. It wasn't enough to just say, "I'm sorry." I took a deep breath and leaned forward. You know, Molly, I loved you. I would have done anything to fix whatever was wrong, but you didn't give me a chance. You didn't even let me in. You just went behind my back and betrayed me. Her eyes filled with tears, but I wasn't moved. I'd seen her cry before, and it always felt like a way to avoid responsibility. I wasn't falling for it this time. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, she whispered. I never wanted to hurt you. I sat back in my chair, feeling a mix of frustration and relief. Frustration because she still didn't seem to fully get it, and relief because I was finally getting everything off my chest. Well, you did hurt me, I said flatly, and now you're dealing with the consequences. We're not together anymore, and that's because of you. She wiped her eyes, trying to hold herself together. I know, she said quietly. I don't know what to do now. My life is a mess. I shook my head. That's not my problem anymore, Molly. You made your choices, now you've got to live with them. We sat there in silence for a while after that. I think she realized that there wasn't much more to say. She wasn't going to get some big reconciliation or closure. This was just the reality of what happened. She made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. After a few minutes, she finally stood up, grabbed her bag, and said, "Thanks for meeting with me. I needed this." I didn't really respond. I just nodded, and she walked out. And just like that, it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I hadn't realized how much I needed to say those things until I said them. The next few weeks were a lot easier after that. I wasn't getting texts from her anymore, and I didn't have that nagging feeling in the back of my head about what had happened. It was done. Over. I could finally start moving on with my life, and that's exactly what I did. I got back into my routine, started hanging out with friends more, focusing on work. It felt good to get back to normal, or whatever my new version of normal was. Molly was in the past, and that's where she was going to stay. I'm not saying it was easy. It wasn't. There were moments when I'd think back to everything and feel angry, or sad, or confused. But every time those feelings came up, I'd remind myself that I made the right choice. I wasn't going to let her drag me down anymore. The truth is, sometimes things just fall apart, and there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to pick up the pieces and keep going. And that's what I did. Update 3. So here we are. It's been about 6 months since the divorce, and honestly, I feel like a completely different person. I didn't think I'd get to this point so quickly, but cutting Molly out of my life was like flipping a switch. It's weird how things that used to matter so much just don't anymore. I've been focusing on myself, trying to rebuild, Getting back to doing things I enjoy, hanging out with friends, and just not having to worry about someone constantly making me feel like I'm not enough. It's crazy how much emotional weight lifts off your shoulders when you're not in a toxic situation anymore. But even though things have been going well for me, of course, Molly wasn't done stirring the pot. One day I got a text from a random number. It was a long message, one of those that you have to scroll down to read. At first I thought it was spam, but when I started reading, it became clear it was from Josh. Yeah, that Josh. The message was some kind of weird apology, but also this backhanded way of explaining why things with Molly weren't going the way he thought they would. It was one of those, I didn't mean for things to happen like this kind of deals. But the part that really got me was when he started complaining about Molly. Apparently, after I left, their little relationship went downhill fast. He said something like, "I thought things would be different between us once you were out of the picture, but it turns out Molly's not who I thought she was." He went on about how she'd become clingy and demanding, and how she wasn't the same person he'd gotten close to at work. I couldn't help but laugh. Like, what did this guy expect? He got involved with a married woman and thought everything would be sunshine and rainbows once I was out of the picture? It was almost too perfect. It's like karma hit him right in the face, and now he wanted to talk to me about it? Nah, I wasn't going to entertain that. I didn't reply. What was the point? I didn't need an apology or explanation from him. As far as I was concerned, they both deserved whatever mess they'd gotten themselves into. Let them deal with each other. I was moving on. But a few days after that, Molly tried reaching out again. This time, it was a phone call. I hadn't heard from her since that awkward coffee shop meeting, so I was surprised when her name popped up on my screen. I hesitated for a second, wondering if I should just let it go to voicemail. But curiosity got the best of me, so I answered. Her voice sounded shaky, like she'd been crying or something. "Jake, I know you don't want to hear from me, but I really need to talk to you." I sighed, already feeling drained by the conversation we hadn't even had yet. "What is it, Molly?" She launched into this whole story about how things with Josh were falling apart. She was going on and on about how he wasn't treating her right and how she regretted everything that had happened between us. She actually said, "I made a mistake, Jake. I didn't realize how much I needed you until you were gone. Now, maybe a few months ago, that might have gotten to me. Hearing her say she regretted leaving might have felt like some kind of validation. But not anymore. I was over it. I didn't need her to tell me she'd made a mistake because I already knew that. Molly, I said, cutting her off. We're done. You made your choices and now you have to live with them. I've moved on, and you need to do the same. She got quiet for a minute, and I could hear her sniffling on the other end. Part of me felt bad, but I wasn't going to get sucked back into that mess. Not after everything. I don't know what to do, she whispered. I thought things would be different with him, but it's not. I miss what we had. That was the moment I knew she didn't actually miss me. She missed the security. She missed having someone who was there for her, no matter what. But she didn't care about me. Not really. She was just upset that things hadn't worked out with Josh the way she wanted. I can't help you, Molly, I said, trying to stay as calm as I could. You made your bed, and now you've got a lie in it. That was it. She didn't say anything else, just hung up. And that was the last time I heard from her. After that call, I felt free. Like, truly free. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I just felt done. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe without all this weight on my chest. Looking back now, I realized that what I went through was probably for the best. I mean, yeah, it sucked. It was messy and painful. And there were days where I didn't think I'd ever feel normal again. But now I'm glad it happened. It woke me up. It made me realize what I deserve and what I won't put up with again. Since then, I've been focusing on myself. I've reconnected with old friends, picked up some new hobbies, and even started dating again. Nothing serious, but it's been fun. And for the first time, I'm not looking for someone to fill some void or fix what was broken. I'm just living my life, and it feels pretty damn good. I know people say time heals all wounds, and yeah, that's true to a point. But for me, it wasn't just time. It was about letting go of Molly, of the hurt, of the betrayal. Once I did that, everything else kind of fell into place. And if there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that you can't control what other people do. You can only control how you react to it. Molly made her choices, and I made mine. I chose to walk away, to move on, and that's probably the best decision I've ever made. So, yeah, that's where I'm at now. Life's not perfect, but it's a hell of a lot better than it was. And honestly, I wouldn't trade that for anything.